All right, the votes were in, and we got acts of service. So, acts of service is doing something that your partner would like you to do. This is a way to show and express your love for them in a way that benefits them. Now, some of us can get this confused versus doing things that we are supposed to do versus doing things that somebody wants us to do, right? I.e., the garbage, or laundry, or dishes, or yard work. A lot of times we associate that and give that role to the gender that is in the house that specifically likes that more. But these are not acts of service. Those are doing things that you genuinely and typically would do normally yourself. But before we dive into that, let's take it all the way back, right? Let's go back to what our parents did when we were growing up. What did we see and what did we experience when we were in that household? A lot of times we can take things that we've learned from our parents and bring it into relationships. Now, sometimes that can be a bad thing. Dr. Chapman states that it's normal to follow the models of the behavior that your parents had when you were growing up. But the thing about that is something that you grew to form a habit of, but you can always dispose of habits that you don't want, right? And don't necessarily fit your relationship now. I know some guys are like, my dad never touched a piece of laundry, right? But then in their own household, that's what their wife wants and needs help with because maybe the wife sucks. I.e., our household. I am not allowed in the laundry room. Yeah, I'm not domestic. Everything doesn't go in the dryer, and I am now banned from the laundry room. I've been banned probably for about 8 years. Now let's fast forward a little bit, right? When you guys first got together and before the title came and all the good fun loving ran dry, what were you doing, right? Because a lot of times people do things in the in love stage that they don't do when they're not in love, right? And not when I say not in love, but in that in love feeling. So we typically can gain an expectation off of something that we were doing prior to getting into the relationship, right? There are some people that they get in a relationship and they're like, man, when I got with my girl, she cooked, her house was always clean, and then we moved in together and she's a freaking slob. Or vice versa. Oh, when he would come over, I would cook and he would always help with the dishes, and now that we're together, he hasn't laid a hand in that sink. That could piss somebody off. I believe this typically happens because as a relationship evolves, we forget to have a conversation about restructuring our relationship and what roles are appropriate for you and what roles are appropriate for me and what roles fit us during this time. A lot of times you will have roles and then certain things will change, like kids will grow up or graduate, and then you still think those roles are still attached to that person. Well, now I don't have to take little Johnny to school anymore, so I have a little bit more free time. And now you're like, well, you have all this free time, why are you not doing this? Well, that also hasn't been discussed because I didn't know that my role was supposed to change. This is all about having time and sitting down and having a conversation and restructuring your relationship. Now, back to you. If acts of service is your first or second primary love language, right? You will need and want these things to happen in order for your love tank to be full. So if you don't receive these things, now this is for the people that their partner are acts of service. If you typically see this person walking around with attitude and you're like, I do and do and do this for this person, you are doing the wrong thing. You are showing the wrong love language to them. This is where this becomes a little dangerous and relationships can end fast or end because we didn't have this conversation. If I'm not getting that, I can start to feel unloved and love can be disappearing to me. Like it's just like a magical trick. Oh, we once were in love, but now I can't stand them, right? And it's usually just small little glitches and fine tuning. This is the same for if this is your person and your person has this love language. If you don't ask questions and ask the right questions and require good answers, you can get yourself in a position where You think you're doing all this stuff and feeding them all their love language, and you're not, because they're necessarily not communicating back to you what they really need. I think it's totally okay to tell somebody how you like to be loved, right? That's important. Why would somebody come into a situation loving you the way they want to love you and that's not filling you up? We are doomed. So, last week I touched on how a husband can take care of the home but not take care of the people in it. Well, now I can place the other partner in it and say the wife can take care of the people in it and not take care of the home. Have you ever seen a couple where you're just like, they look so great, but the house is always messy and she stays home all day and he's always in a bad mood? Well, there probably is a reason. So, if you and your partner just happen to have the same love language, and this is pretty rare, but it happens, typically you guys could be at odds because you are loving each other in the wrong dialect. Let me give you an example. And I know what you're thinking. Most people are like, well, if he likes this and I like this should be a breeze, right? Yeah, too easy, right? If you are a person that acts of service and your husband or your partner's acts of service, your acts of service might be wanting them to come home and help with dinner or help clean up or grab a bite to eat just to give you a night off from cooking. Their acts of service might be saying coming home to a clean house, making sure that little things are done that they don't have to do maybe because they're tired, they have a long day that day, right? There's lots of little things that you can put in extra effort just to show a little love. When this happens, I would say that it's best to create a list, right? Because you would want to know what this person needs and what they want from you. So, in this list, you want to list 4 to 5 things starting off that would show you that that person loves you. And you would give it to that person and that person would read over it, and then vice versa. Now, here's the thing where it gets a little wonky. Each person gets to choose if they want to do those things. If they don't, okay, no sweat off my back. But if you do choose that, you are showing an act of love to me. You are choosing to love me in my way, and that is what love is about. But we also have to remember, if they choose not to, or that's just not their forte, you can't get upset. It is a choice. Love is a choice. You cannot demand love, and love cannot be coerced. When it is like that, you can tell where it's not genuine. And there's a lot of, well, I did that, and then you're like, well, you did that and you had to say that. So it kind of took the love out of it. They say that it is super easy to work on the wrong things. This happens when you think you know it all. Oh, I know how that person is. I know what they would want. I know. Instead of just asking, because you could eliminate all that extra crap if you just ask. I say that because when somebody requests something or wants something, that is when the choice, when it's no longer our choice that we think, we tend to make it look like it's way harder because it's not our choice. Well, they requested that from me, so that's not that easy. But if I thought of it on my own, it's much easier for me. Well, it's also selfish, and that's not the way you want to be loved. So, you doing that, think about that. Stop looking for the easy way out. Last week I used the microwave analogy. Stop looking for a microwavable situation where you can just plop it in and get it out, and then it's like okay and not great. Love cannot be demanded, it has to be requested, right? Love, when you request it, you are giving guidance to how to love you, right? But when it's demanded, it's not. You're blocking the love coming in. So it's kind of like when you put your address in and let MapQuest or Waze direct you to where you're going, that's love to yourself. When you don't and think you know where you're going and you're stressed out, you don't love yourself, you're blocking it. You are blocking all of it because now you are somewhere where you don't need to be, all because you could have just used a little bit of guidance, right? There is nothing wrong with guidance. I do not understand why we frown upon guidance, why it's like, well, I don't need you to tell me what to do. You don't tell me. That's one of my uncle's favorite things to say. And it's like, I'm not telling you, but you're taking it that way because of how you already perceive of what you think of me. Demand stop the flow of love. Have you ever noticed that when you demand something from somebody, it now lowers the level of priority it was on their list? Like, oh, and you better do this. And now they're like, well, it was probably one or two, and now it's like a seven because you don't tell me what to do. This can be tricky because it could be what you hear and not what was said. So this also is attached to tone. If you are one of them people that all you hear is tone, my daughter's like this. I can be like, Jay, and it can be something good. Why are you mad? I am not mad. Stop trying to guess or assume my mood based off of my tone. Your you might just be extremely biased where tone, any type of fluctuation in my voice sets off a negative trigger in your mind. You have to remember love has to be given freely. When it's given freely and it's a choice, it makes you feel better about what you're doing. If when you do an act of service and you do it with a positive attitude, there's a lot of gratification that comes out of that just for yourself, and it benefits your relationship with the other person. Now, don't get me wrong, acts of service do take time, energy, planning, sacrifice sometimes. But then sometimes you don't lose any time with showing an act of service. It could be, hey, I pushed in the chair for you so you didn't have to clean up the kitchen, or I wiped off the counter because I was already downstairs. Really? Thank you. I appreciate that. You also have to remember that acts of service show somebody that you were thinking about them when they were gone, right? Or when they're away, or just thinking about them, period. Like, dang, you were on my mind. So, and I wanted to do something nice for you because I wanted you to feel good, and I wanted you to know that I love you. So, Dr. Chapman talks about these three truths that make a big difference when you're looking at the act of service scheme. So the first truth he says is the only thing certain about behavior is that it definitely will not be the same or exhibited the same during the in love stage versus the non in love stage. The second one, he talks about love being a choice. If you are demanding to be loved, you and your relationship will not be healthy. The moment that you request it and it comes naturally, I promise you, you will feel like a weight lifted off your shoulders, and it'll be like, oh. So, what he means by that is, criticism and demands drive a wedge in our relationships. But during that, we have to remember that every day we have to make a choice if we're going to love or not love our partner. And honestly, it's like a like or not like also. So on the days that you want to love your partner and you want to show them that, you are going to be benefited emotionally from that. If you don't, that's just a choice you make. But you can't say that your relationship is over just for one day, right? But try not to make it a habit. Now on to the third truth. This is self-reflection, self-revelation. If and when your partner is criticizing you, this is for mature people out there. The third truth is that a lot of times it's speaking to what their love language is and what they're not receiving and what they're not getting. This speaks true to you when you hear this. If you are somebody that's like, dang, she's always talking about I don't help her and da da da, maybe I should ask her, or maybe I should just do some stuff, that is where you kind of check yourself and be like, okay, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, clearly something's wrong. But it's not always just you either. So remember that if you have to make a choice of which one are you guys going to get on the good foot first, because you're never going to get on the good foot at the same time. Trust me. One person's always going to be trying to compare something. What we fail to realize is that when our partners are criticizing and saying things, they are like crying out and pleading for love. We look at it as, oh, you're nagging, oh, you always got something to say. But honestly, it's really like, I'm not getting what I thought and I expected to get from you, right? So now you have to take a step back and say, okay, what can I do that I'm willing to do without. Sometimes we attach people's complaining to them. Well, they complain about everything. Well, typically because they're not being loved the way they want to be loved and that the way they need to be loved. And I guarantee if you put a little bit of effort into that, and it's not just something that happens overnight or in a week, or a month. It's something that you take time and you both have to retrain your brains to get out of that whatever was going on prior, because that's what you were living in and it became a habit, right? Now, during this series, make sure that you're using good judgment and good discernment. A lot of times we could be like, well, he doesn't love me, and we're not looking at ourselves. Mirror, right? Um, Make sure that you are working on you and not trying to work on others, because only you can change you, and vice versa. You trying to change your partner is not going to happen. They can change by you role modeling how you're acting and how to show love language, but definitely not by demands and threats. Acts of service will definitely make you re examine stereotypes and stigmas, because with acts of service, we have stereotypes that we have placed on husbands and men and wives of things that they're supposed to do and things that they're not supposed to do. Well, times have changed, people. So make sure that you are always having an open mind to things being different in your household and your structure, and be willing to kind of be flexible if it's going to benefit you in the long run of filling your love tank. Dr. Chapman says there is no reward in maintaining stereotypes, but there is a tremendous benefit from learning and how to love your partner in their specific love language. It really is beneficial. Here's some helpful tips for the people that don't really know how to talk to your mate, right? And it always sounds like you're nagging, or you just write it down, right? Write your list down, text them. Um, I learned a nice little thing when I lived in Hawaii. This lady said, "Oh, me and my boyfriend never argue." And I'm like, "How?" And she's like, "When I want something done, I make a list and I put it on the refrigerator and I put a due date on it. If it's not done by that date," and she said, "I have to be realistic." She's like, "Then I have something to say. But if it's done within that time, I'm okay." And a lot of us don't give people time to do stuff. We want it done right now. Especially us Saturday cleaners, when we get up and then we're cleaning and everybody else is sitting down chilling and we're like, get the up. Yeah, I'm one of those, but I'm learning that everybody doesn't have to clean when I want to clean, right? So I'm going to show you me and my husband's acts of service list, because acts of service is my number one primary love language, and number two is quality time, which I thought was really interesting. And then my husband's was quality time, and number two was acts of service. So I'm going to show you that. Story time. So basically, I came home one day and I had been running errands all day. I took Jordan to a birthday party. I had went to record a podcast. I went to go set up for a recording. I came back home and my room was a mess. And I was like, "Really, babe?" And he was like, "What?" And I left again because I had to go back and set up some stuff. And I sent him my screenshot of my love languages just to remind him. And I had a little help from a friend, but what ended up happening is he ended up texting me a picture of him with a clean room saying, "I cleaned the room, just let you know." And which meant a lot, because we have a big room. So if the bed's not made, the whole room just looks messy when the rest of the room can be clean. When you do things like that, it made me want to do something for him. And it just made me also show that I was like, "Oh, you really love me." So, if acts of service is your love language, or you're trying to learn the love language and become bilingual, it is important for you to ask questions, make lists, and request concrete answers. Not, "I don't know," or da da da, because then that leaves the other partner in limbo, and we don't want that. For my military wives that husbands are on deployment, find something that, if this is their love language, that they've been wanting to do for a long time, or you and the kids can get together and do something. And vice versa. Husbands that are on deployment and your wife is that, even if it's hiring somebody to come clean the house for a day, that's huge. Or if you have more money than you have time, hiring somebody to do those acts of service and explaining, like, "Hey, I did that just because." Now, a lot of times we'll say, "Well, he didn't do it himself." It does not matter. It got done. And the act was in love for him to get somebody to do that, or vice versa. So remember that. It's not about who did it and honestly how it got done. It's that it got done and that it was done for you. If we start looking at situations like that instead of breaking it apart, a lot of times some people don't have the capacity to do something. So stop giving the expectation of that. I'll tell you this and then I'm out. There are things that I just know my husband's not good at, right? And vice versa. So if I really wanted to cook him an amazing meal as like for like black people's food, I'm gonna have to hire somebody or get one of my friends to do it because I just can't do that. But me not doing that is not going to show him that I don't love him. Me going out of my way and finding somebody that could do it and making it the way he likes, that showed I loved him.